Welcome to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. Ron Kramer is a musician, composer, and author. He has worked with some of the best musicians, and there are some chatter regarding making his debut book into a motion picture. I hope you enjoy our chat with Ron Kramer here on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. That was a little bit of a surprise. Instead of our normal intro, we had one of your songs. Tell me about it.
Yes, thank you. That was a song called Dance of the Hummingbirds. It's a musical piece that I've written not too long ago, and it will be used for an upcoming project that's going to be around the corner.
Yeah. Well, you began as a musician. We're going to start off with that. Because, So how old were you when you first started? Would you pick up a guitar and were you self-taught?
I was 11 years old, and I wanted to drive my family crazy, and I picked up the drumsticks and became a drummer.
Ah.
Yeah. And from then on, 11 years, growing into my teens, I had an older brother that played guitar, and he had already the garage band thing going on. And I was always that little bratty little brother trying to sneak in and play the drums in between breaks. Asking the I remember, one of the people, actually the drummer for my brother's band. He's a local guy, Connecticut guy. I'll throw his name out there if it's okay. It's Ken Siedenberg. I remember going over to him, and when they would be taking their breaks, Kenny was kind enough to always let me go out there and sit on his drums and start banging away. But then moving on from there, I got together with my own group of friends my age, and just started doing the garage band thing myself, actually, and did that for many years, all through junior high school, and then out of high school, things took off for me.
Now, were you self-taught?
Yes, for the most part, self-taught. I did, I did study with some teachers out there. I studied some jazz, and then I studied privately with a few other people on the side. But for the most part, learning how to play the drums and everything going along with composing music and everything, I'm all self-taught.
Yeah, who was your biggest influence or influences?
Oh, geez, as a 10-year-old kid, Kiss. Well, I mean, my first rock and roll pop star that I got into when I was younger, I remember sitting home prior to going to kindergarten. What was I, 4, going on 5? And I was a big Elton John fan. It was always played. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was an album, the big gatefold, vinyl albums that we had years ago. I wish we had those things again still. Those
They're
are
coming
awesome.
back.
Yeah, they are, yeah. But yeah, Elton John was probably one of my first pop artists that I really got into and connected with. And eventually I merged into, okay, let's get a little heavier here. And couple friends of mine at school introduced me into the band Kiss. And, that was superheroes playing music, basically. And at that age, that's phenomenal. That's like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
So your favorite genre is more of the hair metal?
Well, that's sort of what I said, I kind of eventually went into. I always liked pop, but yeah, hard rock, heavy metal was, for most of my life, was my music and what I enjoyed listening to and playing for many years. But if you asked me now what I listen to, you'd probably laugh. But no, I'm more, nowadays, I like listening to, classical music, mainly stuff that I write. I just so in love with where I am at in life as a composer. I did the whole writing pop songs, writing hard rock songs. But, some of the obscure bands that I like from back in the day that aren't heavy metal are bands I've named like Jellyfish. Toto is a phenomenal band that I always knew about, but just recently kind of got into them and started digging deep into their catalog.
They have a lot of great songs.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody knows the song Africa.
Yeah.
Toto, so that's a great song. For me, I think two of my favorite drummers are Neil Peart from Rush, Buddy Rich, obviously, the jazz scene, and Carmine Appice, who's been in everything from Vanilla Fudge, Rod Stewart. So you said you're a composer as well. Did you self-taught? Are you self-taught with the piano, or did you take lessons with that as well?
Absolutely. Actually, no lessons with the piano. I'm
Wow.
not classically trained. I always kind of throw that out there to people because I'm not. My whole thing is I'm a storyteller. I love writing and composing music. It's not about me being up on stage anymore, being a performer. I do have a lot of people, a lot of fans, and people out there in the past. Hey, Ron, when are you going to go back out and perform? You should be doing this, doing this. And I'm like, it's not my, it's not my thing anymore. I like being behind the scenes, and that's where my creative juices have really taken off. And very happy in the place that I'm at right now.
Well, that's good to hear. But back in the day, you were in a band named Shanghai, and they made it pretty much. They were towards the top. Did you ever have a record deal with them, or you came close?
No, we did. We did actually. I was in my early 20s, and we did score a record deal with Taichiko Records out of Japan, and they were very good to us. And but we had a game plan, a game or a business plan. We were we were about 19 years old at the time, 18 going on 19, and I finally found two other guys, Tony Challa, I should say Tony Childs, mixing his stage name with his real name. Tony Childs and Jody Reese were my partners in crime back then. But when I hooked up with them after reading an ad in the paper looking for a drummer, I knew I found the right guys because the first thing we all sat together in Pipeline Studios, which was a studio that they built, was we put together a business plan, band dues. We eventually got into the situation where for 2 years all we did was write music. And we said, listen, we can go out there, be the local heroes and do the whole live thing, but we wanted the record deal, and that was going to move us forward. And we said, you're not going to get a record deal unless you have great songs. So, that's where we honed our craft in songwriting, was in the studio. We all invested in studio equipment because we knew that then the clock wasn't ticking. We didn't have to worry about studio hours, how much it was going to cost. So we had that luxury once, our band dues came to fruition and we were able to buy, the Fostac 8-track recorder, the mixing boards, everything that went with it. We would get together daily and spend hours every evening. We all had day jobs during the day when we would get together evenings and weekends and even Sundays. And that's what we did for about 2 years. And it did get to a point where we finally wanted to play out so people can see who we really were. And eventually that did happen.
What I like about that is that you brought up a great point. Back then, you actually had to write great songs and have talent. Instead of now, it's about how many Instagram followers you have. Oh, they have 1 million Instagram followers, but they have great songs. You know what? They have a bigger following. Let's sign them first, which I think is a shame because there's so many great musicians that are falling to the wayside just because they're not popular on social media.
Yeah, there's no more investing in the artist like it was many years ago. You got a 2, 3, 4 album deal. If you were picked up by somebody, there was always the option for them to drop you. But if they get one good album out of you, you're lucky if you get a sophomore album from them. But yeah, it's you really need to hone your craft and work with good talent. And you're right, there's a lot of great talent out there that's not being heard. But the flip side of that is you do have a lot of folks that say, well, you got all the exposure. You can self-promote yourself. You can go out there and do this. My problem that I see out there is it's a market that's very swamped with so many things. And this goes for authors with books and